मॉर्निंग गाइस। आज हम लोग करने वाले हैं क्लास 9 का ट्रेजर चैप्टर नंबर 6 विद द फोटोग्राफर। आज हम लोग इसका एमसीक्यू और आंसर क्वेश्चन देखेंगे। चलिए बिना कोई देरी के हम लोग एमसीक्यू पे चलते हैं। 1. द स्टोरी विद द फोटोग्राफ इज पेनिड बाय स्टीफन लीकॉक। 2. द फोटोग्राफर लुक्ड एट द नरेटर विदाउट enthusiasm. 3. The narrator was asked to wait for 1 hour. 4. The studio was dimly lighted. 5. The photographer had the looks of a natural scientist. 6. The second visit of the photographer was paid by the narrator next Saturday. 7. The narrator's face was found to be quite wrong by the photographer. 8. While waiting for the photographer, the narrator a general for the infants. 9. What was the age of the narrator when he went to the photographer to have photograph taken? 40. 10. The delip is the process employed by the photographer to remove unwanted feature. अब हम लोग आंसर क्वेश्चन देखते हैं। पैसेज 1, क्वेश्चन नंबर 1. Why do you think the photographer did not look at the narrator with enthusiasm? The photographer may have lacked enthusiasm because he saw the task as routine or uninspiring, or he might not have been particularly impressed or interested in the narrator's appearance, which seems to be a common response of someone with a scientific and detached demeanor. Question number 2. Why did the narrator not feel fit to describe the photographer? The narrator assumed that the typical appearance and behavior of photographers are universally known and therefore did not require description. Question number 3. What was the narrator's experience with the photographer? The narrator's experience with the photographer was disheartening and dismissive, leaving him feeling unvalued and subjected to an impersonal and critical examination. Question number 4. What tells you about the appearance of the photographer? The description of the photographer as a dropping man in a grey suit with the dim eye of a natural scientist conveys an image of someone who is disinterested, possibly tired and detached. Question number 5. How did the narrator spend his time while waiting for the photographer? The narrator passed the time by reading outdated magazines, which likely contributed to his feelings of insignificance and neglect. Passage 2, question number 1. Who is he here in this extract? Was he at peace with himself? He refers to the photographer. He does not appear to be at peace with himself, as evidenced by his frantic tearing at the cotton sheet and window panes, suggesting a sense of urgency or dissatisfaction with the lighting conditions. Question number 2. What do you think of the studio where the photographer was to take the narrator's photograph? The studio seems to be inadequately occupied, lacking proper lighting and ventilation, which causes the photographer to become frantic for light and air. Question number 3. What was the photograph trying to do in his studio? The photographer was attempting to improve the lighting in his studio, perhaps to create better conditions for taking a successful photograph. Question number 4. What was the photographer's reaction when he came out of the black cloth on the camera? When the photographer emerged from the black cloth of the camera, he was grave and shook his head, indicating dissatisfaction with the narrator appearance or the lighting conditions. Question number 5. What was thought to be the problem with the face of the narrator? The photographer perceived the narrator's face as quite wrong for a photograph, indicating that it did not meet his standards or the conventional expectations for a portrait. Passage 3, question number 1. What was the narrator sure of? The narrator was sure that a face could appear more attractive when viewed from a three-quarters perspective. Question number 2. The man had such a human side to himself. What does the narrator wish to convey about the man? The narrator wishes to convey that the photographer, despite his professional detachment, showed a moment of reliability by acknowledging the potential for improvement in human appearance. Question number 3. How are the faces of the human beings made to look better and how much? According to the narrator, the faces of human beings are made to look whiter and more expansive when viewed from a three-quarter angle, enhancing their appearance. Question number 4. What is the tone of the narrator when he says that human faces are made to look better? The narrator's tone is one of enthusiasm and relief, pleased with the idea that the photographer might be able to capture a more flattering image. Question number 5. Did the photographer himself need some improvement in his face or mind? How do you know? The text suggests that the narrator believed the photographer could also benefit from being viewed at a more flattering angle, implying that everyone has features that could be enhanced by the photographer's skill. Passage 4, question number 1. Which body feature are asked to be improved upon and how? The photographer asks the narrator to drop his ear more, roll his eyes under the lids, and adjust the positioning of his hand and face to create a supposedly better appearance. Question number 2. Do you think the narrator is happy and satisfied with the photographer? It is unlikely that the narrator is happy and satisfied with the photographer, as he seems to be complying with the photographer's demands, but there is an underlying tension and discomfort. Question number 3. Which things other than the ones mentioned later in the context are to be set right? Other than the features mentioned, the photographer also focuses on the positioning of the body, the opening of the mouth, and the overall expression to meet his artistic standards. Question number 4. Did all these body features of the narrator meet the due approval of the photographer? How do you know? No, the body feature did not meet the photographer's approval as he continuously gave directions for adjustment, indicating dissatisfaction with the initial presentation. Question number 5. What does it tell you about the photographer's art? It suggests that the photographer's art is meticulous and exacting with a specific vision that requires precise manipulation of the subject's features. Passage 5, question number 1. Who is the speaker here? Who is he talking to? What is the occasion? The speaker is the narrator. He is talking to the photographer during a photo session where his appearance is being critiqued and altered. Question number 2. What prompted the speaker to say it is not yours, it is mine? The speaker is prompted by the photographer's intrusive adjustments and critique of his facial features, leading him to assert ownership over his own appearance. Question number 3. What is the tone of the speaker? The tone of the speaker is emotional and dignified, with a hint of defiance as he asserts the personal value and acceptance of his own face. Question number 4. What does the extract tell about the narrator's present mood? The extract indicates that the narrator is frustrated and emotionally stressed, but he also expresses a sense of dignity and self-acceptance. Question number 5. The narrator seems to assert some idea. The narrator asserts the idea of self-acceptance and the intrinsic value of his natural appearance despite its imperfections. Passage 6, question number 1. Where was the narrator asked to come? The narrator was asked to come into the photographer's studio to view the proof of his photograph. Question number 2. What made the photographer feel proud of? The photographer seemed to feel proud of the photograph he had taken, perhaps believing it to be a good representation of his skills. Question number 3. Both the photographer and the narrator looked at the proof of the photograph in silence. Why do you think both were silent? Both were likely silent due to the gravity of the moment, with the photographer possibly waiting approval and the narrator absorbing the impact of seeing his altered image. Question number 4. What was the narrator's reaction on seeing his photograph? The narrator was puzzled and unsure, questioning whether the photograph truly represents him. Question number 5. What more changes did the photographer want to make in the final finish of the photograph? The photographer wanted to remove the ears entirely using the sulfide process, among other possible alterations. Passage 7, question number 1. What had not been tampered with as far as the body features were concerned? The ears had not yet been altered in the photograph. Question number 2. To which question of the narrator does the photographer say yes? The photographer says yes to the narrator's observation that the ears in the photograph were a good likeness of his own. Question number 3. Which body feature had the photographer retouched to make them look better? The photographer had retouched the eyes and removed the eyebrows, intending to replace them with a improved version using the disulfide process. Question number 4. How do the photographers bring about changes in the photograph that looks completely different from the original? Photographers use various processes like sulfide for removing features, desulfide for adding new ones, and other techniques to adjust and enhance the original image. Question number 5. How did the narrator blast the photograph later? The narrator harshly criticized the photographer's alterations and the artificiality of the process used, expressing that the result was a distortion of his true self. Passage 8, question number 1. What is the narrator's reaction on his photograph in his next visit? The narrator is indignant and views the photograph as a distortion of his real self, a mode trinket without personal value. Question number 2. Mention at least 3 different processes with the help of which the photographers affect facial features. The process include the desulfide for adding new features, sulfide for removing features, and techniques like glossing, shading, embossing, and gliding to finish the photograph. Question number 3. Does the narrator approve the technique of the photographers in bringing about changes in the original photograph? No, the narrator does not approve of the photographer's technique as they distort his natural appearance. Question number 4. Would you justify the narrator's viewpoint or the photographer's? Why? This answer would be subjective, but in the context of the story, one might justify the narrator's viewpoint for valuing authenticity and self-acceptance over artificial enhancement. Question number 5. Why does the narrator call the photograph a worthless bulb? The narrators call the photograph a worthless bulb because it no longer represents his true appearance or the essence of his character, reducing it to a valueless object.